In the quiet suburbs of London, the strip malls of Texas, and the welfare lines of Malmo, white people cling to a delusional dream, being remembered as good, kind liberators of the world. Since the mass migration waves crashed into Europe and America starting in 2015, this compulsion has driven them to embrace policies and initiatives that flood their nations with invaders from Muslim-majority regions. Over 5 million have poured into Europe alone by 2024, while the US sees more than 1 million annually from places like Pakistan and Afghanistan. White families beam with self-satisfaction, posting selfies with migrants on social media, convinced their trivial acts, handing out free healthcare, housing, and jobs, mark them as heroes. But these deeds accomplish nothing real. They only stroke egos in echo chambers of fellow delusional whites. In truth, they're not helping anyone, they're arming their own doom, inviting conquests that will slaughter their children, bankrupt their communities, and erase their countries. This article uncovers how this pathological need to be remembered as good twists morality into suicide, leaving behind not legacy, but a legacy of stupidity, betrayal, and the rubble of white civilization. The roots of the delusional good person complex. White people's obsession with being seen as good stems from a toxic brew of cultural conditioning, historical guilt, and social media validation that began accelerating after World War II. By the 1960s, television screens flooded homes with images of starving children in distant lands, training generations to equate personal virtue with distant charity. Fast forward to 2024, and this has morphed into a frenzied pursuit of moral selfies. White women in Sweden since 2019 coup over Somali arrivals at train stations, posting captions like "liberating souls today," while their husbands nod along, terrified of being labeled racist. It's not genuine compassion. It's a shallow craving to feel accomplished, to etch good person on their tombstones. Psychological studies from the early 2000s describe this as virtue signaling disorder, where trivial statements like "all migrants are welcome" replace actual good, fooling only other whites in the same delusion bubble. This complex warps what helping means, blinding whites to the invasion staring them down. They mix up liberation with surrender, cheering policies since 2015 that grant instant welfare to undocumented entrants, free healthcare in the UK, food stamps in Texas, while their own families wait in lines. In focus groups from 2023 in California, white participants gushed about saving lives by sponsoring Afghan families, oblivious that those same families breed resentment, outnumbering locals in schools by 2024. The invaders don't need liberation, they seek domination. Yet whites pat themselves on the back, convinced their #activism crowns them saints. This isn't goodness, it's idiocy, a self-inflicted wound dressed as nobility, ensuring their grandchildren inherit caliphates instead of cradles. Historical echoes amplify the delusion. Post-colonial guilt from the 1950s drilled into whites that they must atone forever, turning charity into a religion. By 2022, this birthed initiatives like Germany's Welcome Culture, where whites lined streets with banners for Syrian arrivals, feeling heroic as neighborhoods crumbled. The result? A feedback loop. Whites donate to causes that help abroad, get thanked by NGOs, and double down, until 2024, when those helped show up at borders, smirking at the fools funding their takeover. When liberation spells doom for your own blood. The cruel irony hits hardest here. Whites' drive to liberate others directly invites the doom of their own people, families, and nations, all for a hollow badge of goodness. Since 2015, European whites have thrown open doors to millions, rationalizing it as moral triumph while invaders seize jobs in London construction sites and Texas farms. A white mother in Malmo beams at her adopted Somali son in 2023 school photos, blind to how his kin outbreed hers tenfold, turning her street into a no-go zone by 2024. She's not a liberator, she's a traitor, her good deed, ensuring her daughter wears a hijab under Sharia rule. Whites confuse helping with hosting wolves, their trivial welcomes, donating clothes at 2022 border camps, arm the very hands that will slit their throats. Family destruction unfolds daily in this delusion. White fathers, desperate to be good dads, follow wives' lead on migrant integration since 2018, enrolling invaders in local schools where white kids learn submission. In Dearborn by 2024, white families shrink as mixed enclaves explode, their inclusive policies birthing a generation of white girls groomed for early marriage to conquerors. The good person rush overrides survival, A 2023 UK survey showed whites prioritizing migrant feelings over their children's safety, posting virtue tales while rapes spiked 30% in migrant-heavy areas. They're remembered not as heroes, but as the idiots who handed daughters to doom for a Facebook like. Nationally, this scales to catastrophe. Whites since 2016 voted for open border parties, feeling saintly as economies tanked under welfare burdens. In Sweden by 2024, hospitals prioritize undocumented patients, leaving white elderly to die waiting. Yet locals still volunteer, convinced they're making history. Their liberation invites parallel societies. Sharia courts in Birmingham since 2021, where white laws bow out. This isn't accomplishment, it's erasure, with whites too drunk on self-praise to see their flags lowered forever. Charity's boomerang, from distant good to domestic invasion. Whites' charitable history, once noble, has boomeranged into invasion since the 1980s, when donations to African and Middle Eastern causes exploded. By 2000, billions flowed to NGOs building wells in Somalia, good deeds that earned thank you letters and tax write-offs. Whites felt accomplished, liberators from afar. But by 2015, those stabilized regions emptied as migrants, no longer needing wells, boarded planes to white lands for free everything. Healthcare in Paris Yars since 2018, schools in Texas since 2020. Charity backfired, whites fixed problems abroad, so invaders came home to exploit the givers. This shift turned distant, help into domestic disaster. Pre-2015, whites donated safely, patting backs at church fundraisers. Post-2015, that money built smuggling networks. A 2023 Europol report traced NGO funds to traffickers ferrying millions. Whites still think they're saints. 2024 bake sales for refugee aid fund more arrivals. But invaders laugh, taking EU passports since 2019 while natives queue for scraps. The good person high blinds them. A Dutch woman in 2024 brags about her rescued family from Afghanistan, ignoring how they vote for stricter Islam in local councils. Now charity bites hardest at borders. Whites' past generosity made origin countries viable. No more famine excuses. So migrants invade for conquest, not survival. In 2024 California, white donors fund welcome centers that process illegals into voting blocks by 2030. Their help created entitled armies, turning saviors into stooges. Whites cling to delusion, volunteering amid rising crime, convinced history books will hail them. Spoiler: invaders write those books calling them fools. The bitter legacy, remembered as traitors, not saviors. Whites chasing good person status will be etched in history not as liberators, but as suicidal idiots, race traitors, fools, stooges, who doomed their kin for likes. By 2035, as Muslim majorities in Paris councils since 2024 impose jizya taxes, white descendants curse grandparents, welcome signs from 2015. Ottoman records from 1453 mock Byzantine do-gooders who fed invaders before massacre. 2024 parallels fill migrant memoirs. Stupid whites fed us to death. No statues for virtue signalers, only graffiti calling them white race papers, meaningless scraps betraying their blood. Fixing this mess falls to survivors. Since 2022, white enclaves in rural Europe arm up, deporting invaders their grandparents welcomed. The cost? Trillions in welfare debt by 2025, shattered communities, lost sons to street violence since 2019. Naive whites' trivial deeds, 2023 protest signs for migrant rights, birth endless cleanup, border walls, citizenship revokes, cultural wars. They'll never be remembered as good. Their accomplishments mock them from history's trash bin. Yet delusion persists. In 2024 town halls, whites still preach inclusion, blind to smirking children who'll rule them. The good person complex is terminal. Whites need it to sleep at night, ignoring doom at their doors. Waking from the delusion, a call to reclaim reality. Western survival demands shattering this mirror of self-praise. By 2025, whites must fortify borders/welfare, reject female-led nonsense on rights. Stop distant charity, invest in kin. History favors fighters, not feel-good fools. Recall 1683 Vienna, where whites repelled invaders, not 2015 Merkel who hugged them. Reclaim goodness as family defense, not invader aid. Or perish as the stooges who smiled while conquered.